On for our fourth session of Respira, architecture of the breath, shaping the mind. And before we get into movement, we're going to start with a simple meditation. So find what we call Vairocana position, which is essentially a straight spine and a comfortable seated position. And the way that I've been inviting Ariane was just doing that is just raising the arms so you feel as though there's a gentle lift. And then keep that lift. The lift is here in the ribs. Keep that lift as you bring the arms down. And they can either rest on the knees. They can rest in kind of thumbs together at the base. And what I'm going to have us do is gently close the eyes and begin to arrive at your seat. So begin to notice points of contact with the ground. And in the past few weeks, we've been using qualities, the gunas, to orient us towards our experience with our body, our breath, and our mind. So just notice how the body feels, whether the body feels heavy or light. If there's a sense of stability or desire, want of movement. Notice and feel the points of contact with the ground, so what is below us. Also feel and sense the upper body, so the hair on the head, ears. Feel the sides of the body, so the lateral aspects of the body. Notice any areas that feel dull, any areas that feel sharp. That sharpness may be an injury, maybe due to discomfort in the seated position. It's possible to adjust, make the adjustments. Otherwise, just experience. Also notice the front of the body as well as the back of the body. So have a full sense of awareness of the body. Sometimes in other traditions we talk about scanning the body, so you can continue to do that. Just bring your mind's awareness to various places, noticing heavy, light, stability or desire of movement, dullness. And that dullness can also manifest as areas of the body map that we're not fully aware of, that we can't sense or connect with. So it might be one shoulder or a hip. That can also be a dullness. A sense of sharpness can be something that is more aware, that we're more acutely aware of. Notice the temperature of the body. And if there are areas of the body that may have fluctuations, it might be the extremities. Again, continuing to connect with the body or awareness of the body. And then bringing our awareness to the breath. Begin to notice the inflow and outflow of the breath. And if it doesn't come natural, begin to bring the breath through the nostrils. I haven't shared this before, but if possible, our breath practice is using nasal breathing. And the reason that nasal breathing is so important is it's a way to, one, humidify, filter, and warm the air as it comes into the body. You can also say that there is, in the sinus cavity, there is nitric oxide that is released when we breathe through the nostrils. So this is also the body's natural way of protecting the body from anything that might be coming from outside. Notice if the breath feels smooth or rough. Smoothness may feel steady, even. Roughness may feel choppy or broken up. Notice the quality of moisture as the breath enters the nostrils. So is there moisture, wet or dry? Notice if the breath has a sense of slowness or rapidness. Does the breath feel full or shallow? Notice where in the body you feel the breath. And if we feel it in the lower region of the body or the upper regions, we feel it in the navel or abdomen, or if we feel it in the chest. Notice also if there are any restrictions to how the breath moves. Is there a sense of flow? And continue to focus on the breath, but invoking the qualities of smooth, steady, slow, full. And even though we're not doing our practice of rhythmic breathing right yet, just invoke a slow, steady 4-count inhalation and a 4-count exhalation. Allow for the mind to ride the wind of the breath. And if the mind becomes distracted, following one sensation rather, or thought, gently bring it back with the breath, without judgment. Using the breath as a gauge, yoking the breath to the mind. Just notice how the mind moves. There's a sense of stability, or more this sense of chala, of movement with the mind. If the movements of the mind are slow or quick, rapid thoughts, continue to allow for the mind, the awareness to be brought back to the breath. Inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 4. Good. Taking 2 more breaths. And when you're ready, opening the eyes gently, softly. All right, welcome everyone. This is session 4 of a 5-week series titled, for those who didn't hear me say this or share this already, Respira, Architecture of the Breath, Shaping the Mind. And the intention of the practice, if you will, is Respira is something that has been distilled out of a Tibetan yoga, Yantra yoga specifically. And the Respira method is really a very simple exercises that have been put together in a way to better understand and really discover and experience what it means to complete breathe, or to utilize the whole body in breathing, and utilizing the concepts that are derived from Yantra yoga. Yantra yoga was a system that came from Tibet, out of Udayana, so the northwest region of India, and was brought into Tibet by the translator Vairocana. Respira method is a distillation, as I was saying, by one of the senior instructors of Yantra Yoga, Fabio Andrico. So he is one of my principal teachers. And so by and large, this system is, we're utilizing principles of Yantra Yoga to better understand and discover the breath. And that is our intention today. We've been so what the layout has been that we've been working through abdominal breathing, intercostal or rib breathing, and thoracic breathing. And today we're going to integrate what it means to exhale well, exhaling from above. And so we'll start through, that's essentially what we're going to be doing. I'm also going to be bringing something in from outside. It's called Omkar chanting, and it's from a different system. But this last week, I was at an Ayurvedic conference with physicians from India for 4 days. And one of the really interesting things that came out of that was the emphasis and focus on a very good exhalation phase. And this is something that is also familiar to people who practice Yantra Yoga. I think it's also garnishing a lot more attention in modern research. Systems, I've trained in something called Oxygen Advantage, and they talk about really understanding how carbon dioxide is a necessary component of getting oxygen into the bloodstream. So again, talking about the exhalation phase is something essential. And so I wanted to bring in this Omkar chanting, and we'll be bringing that in towards the end, because I think it was really fantastic. It was really fantastic to hear these physicians working with National Institutes of Cancer Research specifically, but also working with hormonal imbalances, talking about using breath for cancer patients. It's beyond the scope of what we're doing, but it was very inspiring. And so it's something that we can definitely do here in this work together. So before we start, we're going to do what we call the quick start. It's a way to kind of just bring the breath into the various parts of the body that I described. If it's possible to sit on the heels, please do so. If this is difficult, use a prop and just put something under your bum or under your heels. You can do it in any way that's comfortable. And then we're going to bring our belly to our thighs, and then our elbows on the ground, and then place your chin in your hands. And breathe as though you wanted to fill the belly. Again, do, if you can, for about 4 breaths. Is this microphone okay, Hannah? Oh, okay. It's okay. Good. Okay. Inhaling through the nostrils for about 4, into the belly, and exhaling. And for those who are experiencing this for the first time, part of what Respira is doing in shaping the breath is using the position of the body to shape the breath. So just notice how this position perhaps alters your experience or sensation in the breath. We're using the architecture of the body. And you can pepper your practice with a couple of vigorous breaths. release the chin. Roll the spine up and close the eyes. Notice where you feel. Take a snapshot of the breath. This is like our MRI, our X-ray of where and how we're feeling the breath. Notice where you feel expansion, where you might feel restriction. And this is about discovery and experience, not about right or wrong. Good. And then we're going to open the knees if they're already not open. So this is changing the position, and there's going to be a little bit more tummy space. Again, hands come to the chin comes to the hands. Breathe into the nostrils, through the nostrils rather. And notice the difference in the shape of the breath or where you feel the breath. Notice if the breath feels easier. If providing more space for the belly, at least for someone who has a panza like me, it creates more space, more room for the abdomen to expand. Take 2 more breaths. And release the chin. And then coming back up, close the eyes. And notice the breath. Notice where you feel it. Notice if the breath is moving or the field of awareness of the breath. So our biggest organ in the body is our skin. It is an organ system, and it is also our nervous system. So we can consider it, there's an expression when the body becomes all eyes. And this could, oftentimes in martial arts traditions, we think of it like when the body becomes all eyes. So that's really what we're doing, is we're opening up our field of awareness with our body, using our breath and generating that to better understand the breath. Last position is going to be, again, with the knees apart, either hands on the ground or the forehead on the ground. And the head can come over to one side or the other. Breathe from below, so breathe from the navel. And if the navel is a difficult region to access, think of breathing 4 fingers widths below the navel. So the bony part, the pubis, for those anatomists out there. But the navel, the belly button, is a good point of reference. By placing our mind there, we can become aware of the diaphragm, which sits like a parachute or an umbrella at the level of the ribs. Notice with the inhalation and the exhalation if our awareness of the breath has changed, if the shape has changed. Two more breaths. Good. And release. Roll or press yourself up. And if the eyes are open, you can close them if that helps, or you can leave them open. I didn't say that before, but these movements, if it's easier to facilitate an experience with the eyes open, you can do that as well. Again, taking a snapshot and noticing where you feel the breath. What would like to move with just this simple change in strategy? Good. And if the eyes are closed, opening them. So we call this the quick start. And really the idea is that we move from here through the mid intercostals or thoracic region to the upper thoracic. And through each one, first here, more of the focus becomes on this region. As we open, it starts to move centrally through the central. And then as we bring here, we start to get more movement. And one of the things and one of the reasons for this is just like some of the science behind it, is connective tissue. This is one of the things that makes yoga so exciting, is that we're moving in different ways. It's not merely creating strength, but it's also about the things that wrap all the muscles that literally help to organize the body. Connective tissue, known as fascia, is also a way that the body's nervous system experiences the world. And so when we have movement, and especially through the ribs, and that's going to be some of the focus of what we're going to do, then we start to really are able to get this breath through inhaling. I'm using it kind of like exempling like a bellows. So we're going to do some warm-ups first. I guess I should ask, was this a positive experience with, yes, okay, like beginning to see and facilitate how even just a very simple child's pose adaptations can change it? Good. I'm really glad to hear that. We're going to continue to move forward, and we're going to do some warm-ups. So we're going to start with just, we're going to work through the joints and extend the legs out in front of you and just shake. First shaking, let's say we're moving the feet, but really we're also moving the joints in the hips. Let's say all the way to the heads of the femur, heads of the leg bone, in the hip itself. Good. And then taking the right ankle and gently shaking. And from there, we're going to place the ankle on the above the knee and just churn. Like kind of try to create range through the ankle. We're doing this because a lot of times with seated positions, we can feel like a tin man. We can start to feel rusty, and energy flows through the joints. A lot of martial arts traditions, but also yogic traditions, use joint mobility first. Release the ankle and clasp beneath the knee and gently shake. Let the foot be heavy. Straight spine, long spine, reach through the clavicle, through the collarbone, as though we were feeling ourselves being lifted gently. Coming to neutral, and we're going to inhale up, exhale down. 2 more in this direction. Other way. And release. Keep the knee bent. Interlace on the outer edge of the foot. And I'm going to bring the foot up and towards me, as though I were rowing a boat. Good. Inhale up, exhale down. Good. One more time. And then bring the foot as close as you can towards the body. Place it in the crook of the elbow. Press through the sits bones and just gently rock. And from here, we'll move to half butterfly. So you can do one of two. I'm going to show 2 different examples. So you can either, if it's comfortable, you can bring it towards the groin and gently pulse. Like, this is not good for my knee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it just above the knee and then flex the foot, and I'm going to kind of pulse here. A lot of the warm-ups in the Yantra yoga system, less so in Respira, but in Yantra for sure, we focus on hip opening. Just making sure that the tightness is not as tight, so if we're sitting for long periods of time, we don't feel like it's unbearable. We want to feel like our seated position, our sitting position, is comfortable. So this is why also, and even in, you could say the Tibetan, the Yantra yoga system, interlace the toes or just clasp the foot and churn the ankle. We integrate movement with meditation. A lot of old meditators, or at least a lot of the Tibetans I've seen, let go of the physical body practice and end up with hip replacements. Very interesting. A lot of the old yogis, you don't see this. They might still be walking a lot, doing the things that humans usually do, release, but sitting as much as we do as a culture, cars, desks, blah, blah, blah. It's nice to have a movement practice, especially if we're meditators. Come to neutral, inhale and exhale. And that's not to say movement people can't have hip replacements either. I've seen plenty of those as well. So it's not like people are immune. Other way, but we do our best. Good. Release and keep the foot bent, or ankle, or knee bent rather, and rotate on this side. Again, inhaling up, exhaling down. Last one. Hook the foot in the crook of the elbow, rock. Good. And then bringing it either to the groin or to the top of the knee, and gently pulse. Good. Bring the knee towards the chest. Inhaling, exhale it away. Shake. And we'll do a little bit of windshield wipers. Feet up about the width of our hips, if you will. And then inhale, exhale. And I should feel as though I can drop my knee out to the side. So if the feet are obstructing that, just open the feet so that the knee can drop. Inhale, center. Exhale to side. Good. And one more time, opposite side. Inhale, center. And then exhale, we'll bring the soles of the feet together. Full butterfly. And I'm bringing my heels towards my body, and I'm going to start to gently pulse the knees. Good. And from here, we're going to inhale, exhale, fold with a straight spine forward. Inhale up. Exhale, fold forward. If you want to create a little resistance, you can press your forearms into the calves, activating. Good. Inhale up. Exhale, fold. Last one, in and out. Good. And then just come to an easy pose, seated. And we'll do side, kind of opening the side body, kind of modified thespian. So we're going to inhale, exhale as I bring the elbow or forearm to the ground. Open, inhale, and exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Try to keep that top arm straight. Good. In, out. In, out. Inhale, exhale. Good. Inhale up, exhale, And I'm going to either clasp the wrist or the elbow. And I'm just going to inhale up, exhale down, inhale, exhale. Come to neutral. And then for this, what I call is natural, like kind of we're trying to lengthen the back of the neck, which brings the nose in line with the navel. Ideally, I would say if I'm feeling like this, I might look and see that I look like I'm in kind of like a military position, like where I've created a little bit of this, but it's to alleviate kind of the chin jutting forward. So I'm bringing it here, and then I'm just going to exhale as I come over, looking past one shoulder. Inhale, exhale. This might seem like a basic movement. These are really fundamental movements, especially even in our daily lives. We want to keep this range of motion. As somebody who works with bodies, manual therapist, body worker, I see a lot of older clients losing their range of motion. And the first thing that goes, in our culture at least, is the fear of not being able to drive. And one of the things is looking over your shoulder. So it's a very simple movement. But we still, I mean, even though we have these side mirrors, we still want to look over our shoulder at what's coming. So when our experience, if you will, limiting our range of motion starts to alter our experience of what is in our field of experience. Good. Come to neutral. Exhale, ear to shoulder. The amazing thing about our bodies is they can constantly remodel. Cells are being born every day, and even lost motion can be regained. Inhale, ear to shoulder, dropping it. Inhale, exhale. Good. Inhale, center. Exhale, chin to chest, and then rolling back, inhaling and exhaling. Good. Exhale, change directions. Inhaling up, exhaling down. One more in this direction. Good. And release the wrist or the elbows. Just pausing, taking 3 breaths. Consider this a form of shavasana, of just resting. Okay. So we're going to move forward. We're going to do some of the review with some of the movements from each of the last several weeks. The first one is using the bridge, which is a very common movement. It's used in physical therapy. It's used in yoga. The reason that we're using this, and if this is a new experience, really what we're doing by bringing ourselves into this bridge, there's a couple of different ways. One, we could just start with our knees up and our legs out to the sides. For some of us, this might feel really intense, tight, and we can use props as well, like using supporters on either side. This is almost what I would say is like a yin yoga class. I was reminded over this last weekend, actually, that's the first position we'll go into, and then we'll go into the bridge, shaping bridge. But I was reminded this weekend at the Ayurveda conference just about something that I shared here, which is the way that babies breathe. When babies are born, they're not dealing with nature, gravity rather. Babies are not able to move the same way. And so they haven't really developed this movement. But what they have innately is a diaphragm that breathes quite well. And so one of the things that if you've had children or have children, noticing how they breathe and how their bellies breathe them. And so this is why we use the bridge as an access point to understanding and working with abdominal breath. So it's not necessarily about like how high I can come into the bridge, or really any of the aspects perhaps related to the bridge, how we might use it in a yoga class, but really rather to facilitate the abdominal breath. So lying on your back, and the feet can be just about the width of the hips. So like if you brought your knees up, they would be in line with, the knees would be in line with the points, if you were to place your hands at like your groin crease, and just the knees would be right there, just straight in line with them. And then let the knees drop out to the sides. Let the feet point at 11 and 1. Place the hands on the navel. And begin to breathe through the nose. And fill the hands. And imagine you had 2 additional hands supporting you from below, where your kidneys, or where you might expect your kidneys to be. Breathe into that region as well. So breathe 3-dimensionally from the region, area of the abdomen. If this becomes uncomfortable in any way, the knees can come up to neutral, or you can bring the knees together, or you can alter, like fluctuate between the various positions. Continue to bring that awareness to the abdomen. You may notice as well that the belly kind of puffs towards the ceiling. That's great. Our goal later is not necessarily to bloat the belly. As we begin to integrate into complete breathing, it becomes more streamlined. But for this purpose, we feel the expansion of the belly, the rise and fall of the belly. Good. Coming to neutral. So knees towards the ceiling, arms alongside the body, and the heels can be at like approximately within fingers reach. And then I'm going to press through the heels, tightening my glutes slightly as I elevate my thighs towards and pelvis towards the ceiling, and begin again to breathe through the belly. We'll do it for about 3 to 7 breaths. And allow for the active abdominal breath to lift you towards the ceiling. Again, it's not as important how high we get, but that we're feeling that this position is what enables the abdominal breath, the diaphragmatic breath. Taking 2 more breaths here. And exhale as you drop body towards the earth. And notice the breath. Notice how perhaps even this active abdominal breath shapes or influences the diaphragmatic breathing even more. And draw the knees to one side, rolling up. Making sure not to crash into your neighbor. Was this a feeling or a felt experience with diaphragm? Yeah. It's something that, like, I mean, as a yoga teacher, I may emphasize a position, might put us in a position, but not necessarily with the sole intention of shaping the breath. And sometimes this is something that's not necessarily explicitly talked about. So really our intention here is discovery. And our next phase of discovery, if you will, is to work with the intercostals. So we're going to actually do the same thing. You can either sit in easy position. You can also sit in a form of Vajrasana. Oops. I'm going to just take this position. It doesn't matter, but really where, but I'm just taking this position. And I'm going to place the outer edge of my hand on the hip bone. My fingertips are going to be off the sides. So the inner part of my hand is going to be in the fleshy part, not the bony part of the side of my body. My fingers are off the body. And I'm going to push as though we're wanting to kind of restrain that element. So make sure that the fingertips are not on, they're not like, I'm not kind of wrapping here. I've got more my fingertips off the body, and I'm kind of pressing the sides. And breathe in the navel region. Good. And give it a little bit of like tension. I'm just looking around the room, I could see elevation. Isaiah, I could see your ribs expanding and moving. So this is the idea, that the ribs start to move. It's almost as though we're creating tension and expanding into that tension. You may also see that we can't get, because we've created intentional tension, that we can't get as much expansion here. So more movement is coming through here and up. The way that water shapes is influenced by the shape that we create. We can think of using the analogy of water and prana, or water and breath, that if we put a dam up, the water will flow in that direction. If we've created, in whatever shape we've put a water glass, the water will take that shape. And so very similarly, this happens. Release the hands, close the eyes, notice the breath. Notice where you feel the breath, if there's a residual feeling, residual presence in the area that we've just placed our awareness. Fabio sometimes refers to this as Reiki hands. So we're just, where our awareness goes, prana flows. And those of you who have heard me over the last few weeks, the idea from a medical point of view in the Ayurvedic, Tibetan, Chinese systems is that mind and prana, mind and chi, prana and blood are inextricable. They're not separate. Awareness is everywhere, but where we put it is what's important. And so one of the things that we're working with in a yoga practice or Respira practice is how we place our awareness, how we're using our breath. Eric, I know this is a side note, but last week, or the week that you were here, you had asked about kind of the purpose of breath work beyond the health functions, which is really important, I might add. Just to bringing it back to like the importance of good breathing is really fundamental. But again, just kind of dropping from the Ayurvedic place that I was reminded that in the medical text, they talk about like the ultimate medicine is awareness, is liberation. And if I'm struggling with my breath or my body in a physical way, that's what I'm going to focus on. If I'm trying to get relief from my knee because it's painful, like that's where my awareness is going to go. So really having a physical body that is promoting whatever it is, if my aim is liberation, if my aim is to be of good service, if my aim is to be a compassionate being, if I'm not having to deal with pain and suffering, or, unless I have really high capacity. So just, I thought about that over the course of the weekend, that really the importance of like having good health really enables us to be able to be of service in a way. So, I was thinking of you. Okay, so that is intercostal. And another way we're going to utilize a different movement. You could say this is our integration of kind of a yin yoga practice for this. We're going to use a supine spinal twist to better understand the intercostal movement. So lying back on the ground. And I'm going to bring my knees, my feet off the ground. My hips are flexed. My knees are bent or flexed. And then with the arms off to the side, I'm just going to drop my knees to the right side in a simple stacking them, one on top of the other, supine spinal twist. Now, if that's possible, place so the knees have gone to the right side. Use the right hand and just place the right hand on top of the right thigh, outer thigh. Left hand is to the side, down alongside the body, but maybe about 10 degrees off the side. And breathe into the belly. Again, notice where you feel the breath. Notice maybe perhaps where there's restriction. Now, if there's tightness in the body, there will be restriction, and that's okay. So don't worry about that, but just notice how and where you feel the breath. Now open the arm to about the shoulder. So like it goes immediately out to about 180, right? Noticing how and where the breath goes as we move the arm off to the side. It's very simple. We may see an continuing expansion of the breath into the ribs and the chest. You can say the chest region is where the upper lobes of the lungs lie, and the lower lobes of the lungs sit deeper in the body, in the cavern, if you will, near the lower ribs. And then bring the arm to a Y position. So palm can be up or down. I have my palm up. It's just a little bit easier. And again, notice how the simple shift changes where we feel the breath. My head is in neutral, looking up towards the ceiling. One more breath, exhaling, and then bring the arm alongside the ear. Final position. And one more breath there. As you exhale, bring the arm down alongside the body so that it's alongside the lateral side of the body, and then release the knee. Bring the knees towards the ceiling. On the inhalation, on the exhalation, drop them to the right side, or to the left side rather. Knees are stacked one on top of the other, if possible. Bring the left hand to the outer edge of the left thigh. Good. And the right hand and arm is alongside the body, maybe about 10 degrees off from like touching. So just 10 to 20 degrees. Breathe from below. And notice the expansion of where we feel the breath. And allow for your awareness to stay the whole body, but noticing where specifically we feel the breathing, where the movement, where's the restriction. Bring the arm out to about the scarecrow, just out, straight out to the side. And then bring it to a Y. And then alongside the ear. And then inhale and exhale, let the arm come down to its original position. And then bring the knees towards the chest, towards the center of the body, and then to the opposite side. And then support yourself rolling up. So we've used this position just to, again, to experience, explore the aspects related to the intercostal breathing and expanding into the upper chest. As we were doing this, I was reminded of last week's session. There were some yawns. This is really good. This is a good sign as well that we're going into like what we would call parasympathetic tone. So just getting ready for rest. And the other thing that's really interesting about having a breath-based practice towards the end of the day, and this is feedback that I've received from several people, is that sleep seems to be improved. So like for people who do have sleep conditions, doing breath work at the end of your day doesn't have to be like Bastrika or it doesn't have to be this strong practice. It can be something as simple as lying down on the ground and finding these positions and just simply breathing that can really facilitate quality sleep. Yeah.
Is the exhale also through the nose?
In this, yes. I know, and oftentimes, is it challenging to have the exhalation
I want to do it
through the mouth?
And I was trying to practice it through
Yeah.
my nose because I thought that's what you said, and I was like, I better check.
Yeah.
Maybe,
I mean, one of the things that I found is that as like if in physical exercise, a lot of times with athletics, especially for athletes, one of the things that Patrick McEwen, who's the person who's really highlighted oxygen advantage and really talked about diaphragmatic and nasal breathing. If people have seen mouth taping and all of this in the last 4 years, this is largely the efforts of Patrick McEwen and oxygen advantage. I had not heard of it prior to that. And Buteyko method uses the mouth taping for sleep apnea and such. It's not necessarily the scope of this practice, but one of the things that he talks about in the research that he had done with athletes, he had developed, in my experience and understanding, oxygen advantage, not necessarily to work with athletes, but because men weren't coming to practice breath work. So it was mainly women and children that he was working with. And when he changed it to athletics, all of these men decided to come. Forgive me for anyone who hears this and says that's not true, but I did hear that in the work and training that I had done. One of the things that often happens as when I was more active in my physical activity as a runner and such, but there's a certain point at which my diaphragm becomes like I can't move. Like it's difficult to breathe through the nose, inhaling and exhaling. I would find that running particularly. And when that happens, I usually go to mouth breathing. Now, that's not to say that mouth breathing is bad. If it were, we wouldn't be doing it. But again, the idea that like nasal breathing is a preferred pathway. For people who are more interested in exploring that, James Nestor's written a book about it. He talked about the effects of mouth breathing. He blocked his nose and only breathed through his mouth for, I think, 30 days. And he shared the experience of what it was. and how it affected his psyche, psychology, how it affected his physical body. And it's pretty illuminating. So, to your point, it's not wrong. It's not bad. And oftentimes, I mean, we all exhale through. But one of the things that we are training is the nasal breathing with the inhalation and the exhalation.
You mentioned something about carbon monoxide. How does that play into the
Nitric oxide.
Oh, I thought you said
Carbon. No, yeah.
oh, that's the breathing. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
with evidently there are, and this is again through the more of the oxygen advantage, but talks about how, and the reason to breathe through the nose is that their nitric oxide is released. And so this is for the purpose of when we breathe through the nose, it's filtering, it's humidifying, and it's also a filter. And the final filter is through the nitric oxide. If there have been studies, I think, that were done probably in the last 4 years that are more emphasizing that. Let's do one more movement for dorsal breathing, and then we're going to move into the things for this week, which is exhaling from top to bottom. So let's come to lie on our bellies. And this position is called the comet. And I'm going to bring my heels together and my toes are apart. So bring the heels as though they were touching. Good. And then apart. And then the forehead is going to come to the ground. Breathe into the navel region. You can even bring that navel region to include 4 fingers widths below the navel. Notice where you feel it in the body. Like what moves? Where does your awareness go? Take 2 more breaths here. Take that final snapshot. Release the feet and then bring the big toes together so that the heels are on the outside. And breathe here. And notice the change. Notice what flows, perhaps what doesn't flow. And tuck the toes under, bring the hands beneath the shoulders, press yourself back, and come up to seated. Close the eyes. So we're using these positions to, so to speak, entrain the body to create a map. And then with this map, we start to build a more complete picture of breathing, that we're not merely breathing into the front of the body, but the comet, this last position, was to really feel and facilitate breath through the back of the body. So if you could feel that, like kind of in the first position, how it may have been just limited, at least for me, the experience was very limited to the lower back. When I brought the big toes together, I felt like I started to feel more. Now, if this sounds like hogwash or not like a full picture, that's okay too. This isn't meant to be, it's meant to facilitate an experience. And the comet one was the one that I've recently come back to. Another trainer showed this to me, and I was like, I'd like to really see if this works, because I don't know. And I was really kind of shocked. I've done these practices for almost 10 years now, but I was really kind of surprised because I hadn't seen that one. And it was really like, wow, like he didn't tell me where to feel it, but then I found it at the end. Like when he said it, I was like, this is cool. So it is a testament to how we shape our bodies, what it is that changes. And And yeah, like how the shape of our bodies can influence our breathing. Really thinking about it in our day-to-day activity, especially at desk jobs. I was working a job today and I definitely saw what and how this can change how I'm feeling. I would say this is, when I see this at work, I'm like, it's time for a break. Snap up, like take a break and go for a walk, because it'll be like, it's not a bad position, but for an hour, it's a bad position because it is going to alter how I feel and maybe how I'm thinking. So our next, what I'd like to bring in today is exhaling from top to bottom. So over the last several weeks, we've been talking about how we want to inhale from bottom to top. And that's kind of what I've shown is first bringing in the diaphragm, bringing in the ribs, bringing in the chest. And even before we go into exhaling from top to bottom, place one hand on the navel and one hand on the chest. Fill just for about 2 counts into the lower hand. And then fill the top hand for about 2 counts. And then you can exhale just naturally, unless it comes to you to breathe, exhaling the top and then exhaling the bottom. But fill, and then fill first the bottom hand, and then fill the second, the top hand. See if that, just placing our awareness in our hands, can bring that awareness or that feeling sensation. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's difficult, even after doing this for a while. Good. Place the hands on either side of the ribs. Breathe from below where we were just started, and then fill the ribs. Fill the chest. Again, inhaling, filling the navel. Fill the ribs, chest. Exhale. We say that when we're breathing in this way, it's like filling a water glass with water. We fill it, and the water glass, the level of the water rises. And if we were to exhale using the water glass analogy, we would be exhaling, and the water glass level of the water would. So this is how we're using the Respira method to train the breath. Again, there are a lot of different ways, including exhaling through the mouth, and they're all good. But this is one way that we're training to really become more aware of the complete phases of the breath. So I'm going to show an exercise that we're going to use. It's based, this system, for those who either are here or are watching via YouTube or such. This, I believe, was largely in part inspired by what we call the 9 breaths, exhaling the impure air. And so I'm just going to show it first. There's 3 phases. The first phase is just first inhaling, just watching. And then we're going to exhale. And exhaling. So it's going to first look inhaling. And then I'm going to make fists, and I'm going to exhale, and I'm going to bring them down. And the idea is that as we inhale, we're inhaling. And as we exhale, we're using this movement to kind of muscularly close the sides and then dropping the arms. And this is just kind of a move to kind of clear the chamber, if you will. Not tightening per se, but there is a feeling that it's more like I'm using a little bit of, almost as though I were going through plasma or something, like water. So there's a little bit of resistance, but it doesn't have to be like full clenching or full trembling. But there is a little bit of resistance. The resistance helps to, I think, to help facilitate the feeling of the closure. Another way to just even like, you can kind of like bring the, I think we did this, I think you were here when I did the Ariane, like when I just bringing the arm across, and notice how just bringing the arm across, you can feel the structure. Place your hand on like your pec or the side of the rib. You can feel how these muscles start to close here. And so that's the idea, is some of this starts, and if it feels sticky or stuck, that's also a part of what happens with the ribs, is they have a tendency to get thick and I don't want to say knotty, but sticky. So they're not always like kind of moving. So that's one of the things that a breathwork practice can do. So let's do that together. So we're going to inhale the arms, float the arms up, make fists, and then bring the elbows down, and then towards, and then just release. Inhale up, fingertips together, exhale, and then bring them apart. Inhale up, exhale, release. Ariane, you're going right into where we're wanting to go. So we're going to do this together one more time and a couple more times in this way. So inhale the arms up, exhale, drop the elbows, and then just bring them slightly in and then release. Inhale, exhale, arms together, and then fan them out. One more time. Out. In. Out. Good. Part 2, we'll be inhaling, and then we're going to exhale, and we're going to bring here and then release. Part 3, I'm just going to show it, will be the same thing here, but we're going to emphasize even more rotational. So we're going to feel this. Again, these were all developed through and as a result of Yantra Yoga, because we talk about in the Yantra Yoga system, there's this idea of longsang, purifying the prana, and there's 8 movements. And so in a way, I didn't share this time, but in previous practices, the idea was that these came out of Yantra Yoga to understand some of the movements around how we train the breath. And then we realized that, not me per se, but Fabio more specifically realized that these were helpful for people to understand the breath and breath work in general. So let's do it together again. So we're going to inhale, the arms float up, make fists, elbows drop, and then bring the elbows towards the midline and release. Inhale, exhale, inhale up, exhale, release, inhale, and exhale. Now inhale, remembering as we inhale, we fill from below, fill up the entire body through the ribs, and then we exhale from above. Release. Out. One more time. In. Out. Pause for a moment. Just notice the breath. Eyes can be closed or open. Notice if this has assisted in training the breath in this particular way. May not. The breath may just want to reject it and just take a vacation, which is also totally acceptable. I've certainly had my experience with that. Just notice and observe. We'll do the last phase. So it's the same thing, but with the final movement, there's more of an emphasis on rotating, even bringing the elbows together. Okay. Let's take one ordinary breath. Ordinary breath out. Inhale up. Exhale. In. Out. In. Out, making fists. Release the arms. In. Out. Last one. In. Out. Close the eyes. Let the breath be. Notice the breath. And you can open the eyes. So I think exhaling from top to bottom is perhaps the most difficult part of training in the complete breathing system that I'm presenting. It does involve different types of muscular control, if you will, but it's also what we're doing is training. And so, if this is helpful, definitely, particularly if you have a practice or are doing, breath work already, just considering it like, well, how does this affect or shape what I'm doing? Does this make it better? Does it make it worse? For people who do more of a vinyasa krama style in the traditions of Krishnamacharya, which is largely Patabi Joy, Iyengar, you may be doing a different type of breath work, totally different, paradoxical, which is okay. But for a lot of systems, this can be simpatico. So, and it can also be very beneficial for daily breathing. So we're going to pivot and we're going to do a couple of the rhythmic breathing cycles that we did before. The inhalation is for 4. We're going to hold the breath for 6 counts. I'm using my hand as a counter. You don't have to. And then we're going to exhale smoothly for 4. Okay? So it's going to be an inhalation for 4, remembering to breathe from below, holding the breath for about 6 counts, and then we're going to exhale. Okay? So we'll just do it together. If you get lost, don't worry. I'm going to say inhale, hold, and exhale. If you want to use the arm, please do. If you don't. All good. So ordinary breath in, ordinary breath out, and begin. In, hold, continue holding, out, in, hold, hold, out, in, hold. As we inhale, the breath is smooth. Hold. As we exhale, the breath is smooth. In, hold, out, in, hold, 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 out, in, hold the breath, out. Last one. Hold, out. Pause. Eyes closed, eyes open, just relax. Notice the breath. Notice the mind. So the rhythmic breathing is from the Yantra yoga system. We also use it in Respira, focusing largely on the smooth quality of the breath. In various systems, the Ujjayi or ocean breath is used as a way to temper the amount of inhalation, exhalation. This is used as well. We do use this, but not as frequently. So what I'd like to do before we finish with a final meditation, if you will, is the Omkar chant. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So the Omkar chant is essentially using the Om, A, sounding A, short A, U, M, and then there's a kind of, it's called the Visarga, M, Om, and then we remain empty. Now, as we inhale, we can imagine filling the way that we've been filling, but really what the Omkar chanting is meant to do is an exhalation. When we're speaking, I am essentially exhaling. This is a long exhalation phase, right? People who are singers and performers, orators, teachers who have to teach to the back of the room to get those people in the back of the room to listen. This is a form of exhalation. Opera singers, are training. Performers are training good exhalation, good inhalation. We say that a good exhalation enables a good inhalation. And so I thought that Omkar chant might be a nice way to kind of really think about how we can draw from this complete breathing cycle, but also extending our exhalation. So we're going to sound Om, A, O, M, and then we're going to remain empty, meaning not breathing. 5-10 seconds. So a little bit longer than we've been doing. And then we'll inhale and do the same thing again. Now, it's not important. One of the things in a yoga practice, sometimes we'll do this at the end of class. If we get off cycle with each other and it starts to become a room full of different frequencies, awesome. It doesn't have to be all one together. It can be however it moves for you. So really follow your own exhalation, but think 5 to 10 seconds for the exhalation and try to rest in that exhalation. Also notice the quality of the mind in the exhalation. And I'll be bringing in some of these cues. Okay. So find that nice Vairocana position, the straight spine. Let the arms come down. Eyes can be open or closed. We'll inhale through the nose from below.
One last time. Ordinary breath in and out, keeping the eyes closed. Feel the whole body. And stay with the stillness of the body. Feel the stability of your seat. Noticing the breath. And let the breath, we've been working with training the breath in a particular way, so just let the breath flow however it wishes. But see and feel and connect with the stillness, the silence of the breath. Feel the breath behind the breath. Allow the mind to be expansive. And allow for our awareness to pulse between these three essential aspects of our existence: our body, our breath, our mind, our awareness. They are inseparable. If we find ourselves distracted, bringing ourselves back to the one that feels most supportive to the moment.
Bring ourselves back to the awareness of the body. And gently opening the eyes, keeping the gaze soft. And we'll seal our practice. This is not necessarily part of the Respira, but I like to do it as a way to kind of bring ourselves in. Warming the hands, palming the eyes, and then bring hands over the whole body. Let's say energetically sealing ourselves. And then just in one final gesture, bringing our hands together at the heart. A measure of gratitude for our practicing together today. And that our practice may be of benefit, not only to ourselves, but also to others. Okay. Thank you all for your time, your presence, your being here. I'll be here next Tuesday for the final session, and then we'll have Chandra back on Tuesdays coming in April. So so next week we'll seal our practice, if you will. We'll bring in all the elements that we've had and done together, and do some final natural breathing practices together. So hope to see you back here. If anyone has questions, I'll be here. Otherwise, have a good evening, a restful evening. Thank you. Thank you.